Last night, something unusual happened in Washington. Republican senators voted against their own president. Not Democrats, not independents, Republicans. When Donald Trump learned about it, he reportedly called Senator Susan Collins and erupted in an angry, profanity-filled outburst that shocked even seasoned lawmakers. I've followed Washington politics for years. Party infighting isn't new. Disagreements aren't new. This is different. This is a president facing open resistance from his own party over core presidential powers, war powers, and emergency powers, the kind of authority that can reshape countries overnight. This is happening while Trump declares a national emergency tied to Venezuelan oil assets, publicly entertains military action against allied territory, and faces growing scrutiny over transparency promises that have stalled enough to trigger formal oversight requests. This isn't political theater. It's a real-time stress test of American democracy, with consequences that extend far beyond this presidency. Over the past several days, a rare chain of events collided in Washington, producing something almost unheard of, an internal revolt within a sitting president's own party. It began with the War Powers Resolution. Passed in 1973 after Vietnam, the War Powers Act was designed to limit unilateral presidential military action. It requires consultation with Congress and restricts how long troops can be deployed without approval. It exists to ensure that no single person decides matters of war alone. Last week, that safeguard was activated with Republican votes. Enough GOP senators crossed party lines to advance a resolution that would restrict the president's ability to take unilateral military action. That alone signals how serious this moment is. The reason is clear. Statements coming from the White House made even loyal supporters uneasy. The president openly floated the idea of using military force to acquire Greenland. Greenland is not disputed territory. It is part of Denmark, a NATO ally the United States is treaty-bound to defend. Any military action there could theoretically trigger NATO's collective defense clause, placing America in conflict with its own alliance. Lawmakers understood what that meant, Republicans included. They decided a line had to be drawn, and they voted. Trump's response wasn't persuasion or negotiation, it was fury. The call to Senator Collins reportedly involved shouting, profanity, and threats. It revealed how dissent is viewed, not as democracy functioning, but as betrayal. At the same time, Trump declared a national emergency related to Venezuelan oil assets. On the surface, it's framed as energy security. In practice, the benefits are uncertain, distant, and largely favor multinational energy companies rather than American consumers. Emergency declarations are not just about crises. They grant expanded authority, allow funds to be redirected, reduce oversight, and centralize power. And the timing matters. This emergency was declared as Republicans were rebelling, transparency efforts were stalling, and oversight pressure was increasing. Senators have begun publicly pointing out delayed document releases and missed timelines. Inspector General reviews have been requested, not as accusations, but as recognition that the process isn't working as promised. That's the pattern. Pushback appears, authority is challenged, crisis language follows, emergency powers expand, oversight gets drowned out. The presidency is not meant to be a personal possession. It is a temporary grant of authority bounded by law and checked by Congress. That system only works when people enforce it. For years, many Republicans chose to look away, trusting norms to hold. That calculation is now breaking down. When a president talks about using force against allied territory, this stops being a policy disagreement. It becomes a question of who controls American power and how far it can go. Lawmakers understand that silence now becomes precedence later. If Congress doesn't object, future presidents can claim the same authority. That's how norms die, quietly through acceptance. The War Powers Act exists for moments like this. It was designed to prevent exactly this kind of unilateral drift. When Republicans supported the resolution, they weren't just opposing Trump. They were defending Congress's constitutional role. Trump hasn't ordered military action. The Greenland remarks remain rhetoric, but lawmakers know that once military action is framed as an option, plans begin, assets shift, and the chance to intervene shrinks fast. Acting early is the point. Trump's reaction exposes his view of power, not as delegated authority, but as personal control. Oversight becomes an attack. Dissent becomes disloyalty. That mindset is what has pushed some Republicans to reconsider their silence. They're thinking about their oaths, their legacies, and the institution itself. This isn't just about Trump. He won't be president forever. But every unchecked power becomes a tool for whoever comes next. Presidential powers don't have party labels. Once expanded, they're hard to reverse. That's why this moment matters. Transparency ties directly into this. Disclosure was a central promise. Delays and missed deadlines invite scrutiny. Oversight is not hostility, it's accountability. But accountability creates records, and records don't respond to pressure or spin. They simply exist. Whenever scrutiny tightens, the narrative widens. Oversight leads to emergencies. Pushback leads to escalation. Internal dissent becomes loyalty tests. It's not random. It's a pattern meant to keep attention moving too fast for real accountability to settle. Congress isn't supposed to be an audience. It's a co-equal branch. And for the first time in a while, some members are starting to act like it again. War powers votes, oversight requests, inspector general reviews. These are boring tools, but they're how the system defends itself. This affects everyone. When war powers are abused, real people deploy. When emergency authority expands, tax dollars move without representation. When transparency fails, public trust erodes. Markets react, alliances weaken, stability suffers. What's at stake isn't one presidency or one party. It's whether constitutional limits still mean anything in practice. That question gets answered through decisions like these, made when it would be easier to stay silent. This story isn't over. What happens next will depend on whether those who finally drew a line keep standing once the pressure increases. History shows institutions can recover, but only if people choose to defend them consistently. That's what this moment is really about.
Thanks for watching. Stay connected for more updates.